People have been waiting for this. They've been asking this question. When is the housing market going to crash? That's what I'm talking about today. Stick around. Hi, welcome back. My name's Joe Brown. I'm a realtor with Century 21 Elizabeth Beggins, located in South Tampa. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So last week in my video, I announced that I was going to talk about when the market is going to crash. And my friend John has been calling me almost every day saying, Joe, tell me, give me a sneak peek. I want to know. And I kept saying, John, no. You will know when I announce it on this video. So, John, you can relax. Go get a beer, sit and watch, okay? Or a glass of wine. So, but by the way, thank you so much. If I didn't say that, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm off to the side because I have several graphs I want to share with you later in this video. So absolutely stick around. That's some really cool information to share. So let's talk. And if you go to Google and search, when is the housing market going to crash? You'll find that that is one of the most searched terms, one of the most searched questions happening right now. And I am going to answer that. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see, right? So first of all, let's go back. So when I worked on my doctorate dissertation, one section of the dissertation had to be definitions, right? But because whether it's the field of education or housing or whatever, we use terms. But yet what the term means to me may be different than what the term means to you. So let's just talk about crash. What do I mean, or what do you mean? Well, you can't tell me. But what is a market crash? Let's define that. And there are different crashes, right? There's a very sudden, dramatic drop in prices. We saw that right after 9/11. We saw that with the internet tech bubble, right? That you saw that sudden drop. And that sudden drop happens over just a few days. We see that in the stock market throughout time. You know, over a course of a week, stocks will drop 10%. There's also this very long, drawn out, this broad market where everything drops. Home prices drop, unemployment goes up, inflation is higher, people are losing their jobs, markets are closing, banks are closing. We saw that during the Depression, right? Well, whoever was alive back then saw that. But back in the 20s, early 30s, you saw this crash of the economy. But then, especially in the housing sector, and this is the definition I'm using of a crash, is you're going to see a correction of about 20 to 30% year over year change, right? So home prices are dropping 20 to 30%. So as an example, let's say I buy a house for $300,000. Well, an 80%, if home prices drop 20%, that's $40,000. So then the house sells for $240,000. So from $300,000 to $240,000. That's what I would consider a crash. But that's just one house. So we're talking market overall, right? So that's my definition. Is the market going to crash? Are we going to see that 20 or 30% change in home prices to the downside? So next thing we need to look at is what are some causes of a crash, right? That there are different things that cause crash. So here's one is that there's an over evaluation. There's a lot of speculative buying. You absolutely saw this with the technology, the dot-com bubble. Companies were starting up, had no revenue, but their stock price was $100 a share but everybody believed every tech company was going to explode and do great. And I saw a figure, something like 80% of those companies no longer in business. They crashed. So that's that speculation that, oh, it's going to be great. And that speculation, that bubble burst. The other is rising interest rates. Do we see that today? Absolutely. Well, we see the rising interest rates. We see the rising mortgage rates. Mortgage rates came out yesterday at 7.57%. That's the prime rate out of Freddie Mac. Interest rates are 5.4 right now. And we think there's going to be another rate hike. Inflation is rising. So that could be a cause for a crash. The other is an economic downturn. And this is really where the fear is, right? So interest rates are higher. People are losing their jobs. There's downsides, people getting less money, but they still have a mortgage to pay. But because of inflation, they're paying more for electricity and heating and gas and food. So money's very tight. And so people can no longer afford their mortgage. Now, and this is where I have to absolutely plead with you. If you are in this situation, see, pride can set in and say, I'm not going to sell my home for less than I bought it for. Well, if people aren't buying it and you can no longer afford to pay the mortgage, then the next step is foreclosure. You do not want to be foreclosed. A foreclosure will hurt your credit and getting a mortgage for years. So that's not something you want to get into. So if you're in that situation, bite the bullet, just sell the house so you can get out from under the mortgage payment. Now, the question is, where can you find a place to live for less than what you're paying? That's a different commentary, different question. But however, there are people sitting on the sideline waiting for foreclosures to happen, right? I'm going to get the house cheap because of being foreclosed. If you're in that situation, please reach out to me. I'm not sure if I've said this before. I've sent several letters to people. If you're in a situation of foreclosure process, reach out to me. I have a contact who's a lawyer who will give you a 1-hour consultation for free, and it's absolutely confidential. All I do is I give you his number, you call, you talk to him. He never talks to me, I don't talk to him, whatever. He talks to you and tries to figure out a solution. So please reach out to me if that's the case. Another cause for a market crash is loose lending practices. Easy money, right? That's what we call it, easy money. Many years ago, I had a friend who did not have a job. And he called me and said, hey, Joe, I need to borrow $50. Can I borrow $50? He said, I'll pay you back. Well, logically, he doesn't have a job. How is he going to get $50 to pay me back if he has to borrow $50? However, I didn't worry about that. He's a friend. I'll give him $50, which turns out that's what happened. But that is easy money. That is loose lending practices. So I want to share this graph with you. And this is a very interesting graph. So let me help explain it. Along the left side, the vertical axis talks about the billions of dollars in lending for homes. Okay, the billions of dollars. But then you see the columns are in different colors. And the legend for the colors is above the graph. So the very dark blue, so look at the bottom along the horizontal, the very dark blue are credit scores below 620. And then the orange are those credit scores between 650 and 660. And those are considered subprime lending, right? That they're just riskier for the bank. And I'll come back and talk about that later. But those are riskier for the bank. So you see, leading up to look at 08, 03, 06, 07, 08, right? You see a lot of those dark blue and orange lending practices. But then you did have the market crash in 09. And then look what happened. Continue along the horizontal line to today. You see very little dark blue and orange lending. You still see it. It's still there, but it's not as prominent as it was back in the early 2000s. Look at 2023. See that light blue bar? That is lending for credit scores over 760. That's a very strong credit score. And you see most of the lending is above that 760 credit score. So lending is not easy. It is more difficult to get a loan now than it was. Now, I will say it is possible to get loans, if you're around 640, 650, 660. But understand the bank is taking a risk and you have to pay for the risk. So where somebody with a credit score of over 760 may get a mortgage loan for 7.5, somebody in the 640, 650 range may have to get a mortgage at 9.5%, right? So 2 percentage points higher. Now, some people just can't afford it. That's why there's less lending. So, but just know the credit score is key. And I did a video quite a while ago. I'll share a link to it again on credit scores, what goes into a credit score and what you can do to raise your credit score. So this graph just shows the lending practices compared to credit score in a historical, so for like a 20-year period, this is what we're seeing. So the concept of easing money can lead to a crash. Yes, it can. And we saw that back in 09 and 10. We're really not going to see it now just because there are tighter lending restrictions. And then another cause of a crash and price drop would be oversupply. And I'll go back to the example I use all the time about my sunglasses. I have 5 pairs of sunglasses. I sell one for $5. But then next week I get a shipment of 20 more pairs of sunglasses. So now I have 24 pairs of sunglasses and nobody wants to buy them, right? I have 24 pairs. Nobody wants to buy them. So I drop the price and $2, $2. You give me $2. Nobody. $1. Oh, somebody buys a pair for $1. Well, somebody paid me $5 last week. Somebody paid me $1 this week. Same pair of sunglasses. What happened is that law of supply and demand. So what's happening in the housing market? There was a report 2 weeks ago that the United States needs 5 million new homes just to meet demand. 5 million. I've shared several times on my updates, we are very low supply, right? The law of supply and demand, very low supply. So if we think market could crash because of oversupply, that is not going to be the issue with us. So I want to show some graphs to you. And this first graph, I've shared this several times on different videos, and this is the Case-Shiller home value chart. And you can see historically. So the blue line shows the median home price nationwide. The gray bars you see are times of recession, economic recession. Well, what do you see with home prices during those gray times? You know, home prices really were not affected. In some cases, they even went up, except during that 2008 to 2010 period, which was the subprime lending, right? So now I took this chart and I said, well, let's look at the Case-Shiller percent change year over year, but let's compare it to what Zillow is saying, and let's compare it to just what we're seeing across the country. So look at this chart, and this is a year over year chart, right? You see this? Now, I changed this chart just to look at Tampa. So let me just put Tampa up here, right? Do you see the major change? Yeah, really didn't see a major change, did you, from the national chart to the Tampa chart? But let's look at this. But because if you look at it and you look at the right side, you're saying, wow, prices have dropped. Well, hold your horses. So look along the vertical axis on the left side. What we're tracking is the percent change year over year. So the black line going horizontally is 0, which means we are seeing 0% change year over year. Well, what do you see here? Back in that 2009, 2010, home prices in Tampa dropped almost 30%, right? So yes, that's a market crash. We saw that 20 to 30% market crash. But then what do we see in March of 22? You know, mid of 22, we see home prices increase almost 30% year over year. And again, this just isn't Case-Shiller. This just isn't Zillow. This is all home prices. This is Case-Shiller. This is Zillow tracking the same numbers. Well, where are we now? Yes, you could see we're dropped. But what we did is we regressed back to 0. So what we're seeing now is we are not seeing a change in home value year over year. And if we are, it's plus or minus 1%, right? Well, 1% up or 1% down. Again, not a crash, but year over year. So I thought, well, you know, for the past year and a half, interest rates have really gone up. So can I take this chart and zoom in? That's what this next chart shows. This is a 3-year chart. And you can see along the left side, we were averaging about a 5% year over year change. Then we hit 2020 and we went up to about a 20 to 30% year over year change. But again, we're back to 0 year over year change. So if you're today looking back, you bought your house 4 years ago, you've really seen some really nice appreciation in value. What does that do for economic downturn? If you say, oh, I'm being foreclosed upon, well, you have so much more equity in your house, right, that you'd be able to refinance and pay off. That's why we're seeing very few foreclosures right now. because people have equity. Lending has gotten tighter. The people that would be in trouble are the ones that bought within the past year. However, lending is tighter, right? It's harder to get a loan. So we're not seeing a lot of foreclosures out of these people. However, with the economic downturn, people may lose their jobs. Having a family owning a home has gotten more expensive. So I think we will see some foreclosures. We will see some short sales. Now, a short sale means I'm going to sell the house for less than I owe on it. And that has to be approved by the bank. We see some of those, but not many. Going back to 2009, 2010, there were hundreds of them, but we're not seeing very many of them now. So here's the question. When is the market going to crash? Here's my answer. Not soon. It's not going to happen soon. There are just too many factors supporting the real estate market, right? Tighter, we are undersupplied. It's tighter to get mortgage right now, so there is not a lot of easy money. The factors we really have to watch are the rising interest rate and economic downturn. That is going to affect some families, and my heart goes out to them, right? But because you go into a house with hope and expectation, and then you find these economic issues, and that's why I want to help. If you're in that situation, please call me. So are we going to see this major 20 to 30% correction? No time soon. No time soon. Will we in the future? Maybe. But if you think over the past 20 years, it's happened once. And maybe in the past 100 years, it's happened twice. So no time soon. So for those of you expecting a date so you can write it on the calendar, I apologize. John, I hope this helps you, even though you'll call me and yell at me for not giving you a date. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you have questions about any of this, please reach out to me. Go to my website, joebrowonc21.com. You can hit the contact me button. You can search for home, read my blogs. Thank you for spending time with me today. Hey, living in Tampa, living in South Tampa is awesome.